Hey, what's up Islanders? In this video, I'm going to be playing Carnotaurus on the new update. Yes, it got nerfed, but Carnotaurus is actually still really good, and I'm going to prove to you why it's really good in this video. So you should watch till the end just so you can see how many fights I get into and manage to survive, while also getting a lot of kills along the way. Not only that, but you won't be seeing the juvie stage because it was pretty much mostly AFK growing. Apart from that, enjoy the video. I start my journey in the East Plains jungle, looking for some diets. My line is about to drop, and I need to find something quickly in order to sustain my perfect diet. Right behind me, I notice a packy in the bushes. Right before it can react, I hit it with a ram and a bite, leaving it shocked. It tries to chase me, but I'm still faster than it, so I run straight into the bushes and lose sight. It wraps around, but I catch it off guard and I hit it again. It tries to go for another attack, unaware that I've already left the scene. After that, it realizes that it won't be able to win a fight against me, so it runs away, and I'm left trying to look for it. Since I've lost track of it, I've just resorted to walking around and trying to look for footprints. I tried luring it out with an F-call, but it didn't work, so I just kept walking around. After that, I decided to go out to the beach where it was a bit more open and I could see a bit better. Luckily for me, upon arriving at the beach, it didn't take long to spot the packy hiding in the bushes to my left. So I charged up a ram and went in. I hit it twice and I lured it out, where I had the advantage. But little does this packy know it all come to an end right here. And I get my meal. After topping off my diets and getting a little bit of my lines back, I decided to take a drink at the East Pond before making my way northwest into Highlands. Enjoy the travel montage. As you can see here, upon arriving to Highlands, I've come across this herd of 2 stegos and a Dible who were being chased down by, I would say, a full-grown Ceratosaurus. And instead of engaging, I decided to sit back in this bush and observe the fight, hoping for an opportunity. Alright guys, so at this point I decided to let my presence be known by performing an F call, and the Serato didn't seem to really take me as a threat, and instead we decided to work together in order to separate the herd and possibly take down the smaller opponent, which was the Dible. And yeah, here's us executing that plan to the best of our ability. As you'll see here, it's going to be very hard for us to take on this kind of a situation just because of the stegos. Like, they each weigh 6 tons and they possess a very powerful weapon, the Thagomizer. It's those 4 sharp, conical shaped spikes on their tails which really set the tone for this fight, as it instills fear in both me and the Ceratosaurus' hearts as we try to get closer and hopefully separate them. Finally it happens. We're able to successfully separate the Dible for just a little bit and make an attempt at weakening it further by placing a few good bites in. Unfortunately, due to some server issues, I was unable to do any damage, but nonetheless we still made an attempt, and it was an attempt well made. At this point, we noticed the Pachycephalosaurus, which was watching us from, I would say, about 50 feet, attempting to assess the situation. But as we all know, most herbivores work together, and this Pachy was no different. And as you can see here, he came to help out the herd that we were currently attacking. So we swapped targets to the Pachy, as it was the smaller target, even smaller than the Dible, which would have been easier for us to take down. And so my ally started chasing it while I prepared myself for a ram attack. But unfortunately, I ended up misplacing my ram attack, and instead of hitting just the Pachy, I also ended up killing my own ally, which I was sad about, but it did provide me with an extra meal just to keep me going. Later on, as the night settled in, I decided to try and ambush the Dible while it was eating on its own, and the stegos were a bit further ahead. I got one bite in, but also took some counter damage in the process, so I decided to back off just for a little bit, maybe to make the opponent lose sight of me just for a little bit, but he really wasn't letting up. He could still see me despite the darkness. And he started also calling to his buddies to come help him. So at this point, I just kind of wanted to assess the situation further, so I took his footprints and I started tracking. And after kind of looking over the hill here, I saw the terrain was not suitable to take a fight, and after this I just kind of decided to back off for now because it wasn't going to be worth the trouble to take that fight. And with that, I headed back to the Highlands lake. And while I was walking around here, I didn't notice it at first, but there was a small sub-raptor here, and so I engaged in a chase. After chasing him, I eventually caught up and flung him off a cliff. His organs would be useful in maintaining my diets. After that, I came back to the pond hoping to get some water when I noticed an AFK Deinosuchus basking in the bushes. And so I decided, why not try to sneak a few bites in? Maybe he's low on health, maybe I can get another free meal and top off my lines and finally activate my perfect diet. And that's exactly what I did. But in order to stay safe, just in case he was actually around, I decided to stand at the tip of his tail where I knew he couldn't hit me, and I went for a few bites. Fortunately for him, he came back in time and snapped right back at me, but as I said earlier, I was standing in a safe spot, so I didn't take any damage in return. Now, thinking that he was the only dino here, I thought maybe I could take a drink at the water, but I was soon welcomed by his partner, who I wasn't very pleasant to see. So after that, I went to a different part of the lake and was able to get a drink. After that, I kind of made it down to Westrail, went through highlands, and I heard 2 baby Dibles. And so I lie in wait for the perfect chance to strike. And there it was, my opportunity to charge a ram. With Carno, the longer you charge a ram, the more damage you do. So as you'll see here, I was able to easily one-shot this. And there it is. First target was down in 1 hit. Second target took 3. But that's the name of the game. Their bodies would serve their purpose. And luckily, while I was walking down the path, I found a dead Gallimimus, which would end up activating my perfect diet. Here's an iconic Carno ram. You'll love to see it. Oh, look at that, another baby Dible. And as I arrived at South Plains, I took a moment just to take in the view, as I enjoyed the peace. Unfortunately, said peace would not last for much longer. So, upon arriving to the bottom half of the plains, I saw a Dible and a Pachy, but they weren't my target. I was trying to go for this Herrera because I know they're very pesky, but he got into the tree just in time, so I kind of snatched a few bites out of the bodies around the area, just to top off my diets and keep my stomach full. And right here, as you can see, there was a raptor trying to eat when the Herrera jumped him. And judging by that powerful jump, I would say this raptor doesn't have long to live before it bleeds out, so I started chasing it. The Dible and the Pachy kind of helped me, even though I didn't want them to, because they ended up chasing me away from the body, so I took a drink, and I went back. Later I found them sitting on this rock, which will be useful information soon. And after that, I spotted the Herrera out of the tree, far from cover, and I started a ram. Poor guy tried dodging me as best as he could, but it wasn't enough, as he was about to get onto the tree, hit him with the final ram that ended up killing him, and I started to eat his body. When out of nowhere, the stegosaurus decided that he didn't like me and he wanted me dead. So knowing that I had a lot of food here and that I kind of wanted to stand my own ground, I took the challenge and I started to defend myself, trying as best as I could to bait out the swings without taking any damage, perfectly dodging every hit. One by one, each swing would slowly deplete the stego out of its stamina reserves, and once that happens, they'll be left vulnerable for my attacks. As you can see here, he's starting to get weak, and his reserves are starting to deplete. A few more swings, and I was able to go for some more bites myself, just to keep him standing on his toes. While the other stego was occupied, his friend sat down, and I tried to go and get some more bites in, just to hopefully, maybe finish him off. But it wasn't going to be easy, as his friend was right there defending him. So I had to maneuver quickly, and I had to maneuver safely around, just in order to get some bites in. This was proving to be very challenging, and it wasn't my best moment per se, but I enjoyed, running around in circles trying to kill one person while the other one was trying to kill me. A few bites in and the Gallimimus came back and helped me do some more damage. Unfortunately though, that stego recovered some stamina and got back up, and the Gallimimus got killed by the other one. So I was left with no choice but to back off, especially after the Dible and Packy came back to chase me away. So after sitting down and healing, the bigger stego decided to chase me, and chase me, and chase me even further. So I decided I had had enough, and I engaged in a fight in hopes of maybe defending myself and making this guy want to stop following me. Now, I don't know why he would sit down a lot here in this situation, but I was just kind of under the assumption that he was a little bit low on stamina, and maybe he was trying to bait me into running into his swings, but it wasn't working for him clearly here, as I was getting a lot of bites in. And with the little Carno on recon, I was very confident that no one would interrupt this fight, as I had this stego all to myself. After some time has passed and some more quarreling had gone on, it started to rain and nightfall was starting to settle in. And at that point, the stego was starting to get a little bit weaker and a little bit lower on stamina. And as you'll see here, just as every stego player likes to do, when they get low on stamina or health, they camp a very, very tough spot to get to, just to defend themselves. Which, I mean, it wasn't that bad. It was kind of good in my situation because it meant that I was doing a good job at keeping him away from me. And that was basically my goal. And so after I saw that he was basically just going to camp that forever, I decided that it was time to maybe back off the fight and call it. Fortunately for me, my streak of bad luck would come to an end as I'd spotted a raptor pack further down into the distance. That's when I decided to set up an ambush. I knew I had to be careful, as if I had gotten pounced by more than one raptor at a time, I would have been pinned to the floor and taken severe damage. So I used the bush as cover and I went in for a ram. Missing my first ram, I still followed back up with another one and another one, which ended up hitting 2 targets. Knowing that the first raptor I'd hit was weak, I was mainly focused on killing him first. So I deterred the rest of the raptors by using my movement to drift back and forth and swap targets to keep every single one of them as busy as I could while I focused on my main target. I had to walk a little bit just because I was running a little bit lower on stamina, and low stamina is basically a death sentence in this game, so I trotted my way up the hill. But shortly after that, the first raptor that I had already weakened came back, and I hit him with another good ram to the face. And there it was. Game over. One of the raptors was down, and I was left with my next meal to help sustain my diets. I continued stalking the pack of raptors, and I noticed them sitting on that same rock that the Dible had managed to get up on. So my thinking was, what if I could get up there too? Trying to figure out where the sweet spot was on that rock, where I can make my Carno just barely get on it, just to scare them off. They 3-called me, threatening me to get away, but I had already found that sweet spot. Fighting one of them, they all fled the rock, and I started chasing them around. I mainly singled out this gray raptor as he was a little bit better at dodging me than the rest of them, and I kind of wanted him out of the picture first. So I chased him through the plains, and he was doing a good job at dodging my rams. Unfortunately though, I was able to hit him twice, so he decided to go into the bushes to throw me off a bit more, which did work for him, and he did throw me off a little bit. But I was persistent, which led me into chasing the raptor through the jungle. Using his agility to his advantage, he was able to throw me off a little bit and gain some distance, but with my speed I was able to close that distance even quicker than he was able to make it, and therefore he had to act quicker than I could. Was able to hit one more ram on him before I sent him running down the hill, and I started to run a bit low on stamina, so I started tracking him through his footprints and eventually made it down to this other rock where he was kind of perched on. Now my thinking was maybe I can get on this rock too, because there was a bit of a slope sticking out of it, so I examined the rock just to make sure, and upon trying to get on the rock I realized it was going to be useless. So I waited for a little while, and eventually one of his companions had joined him on the rock, and his other companion was on his way, but I cut him off just in time before he can get to the rock. I guarded the rock for a quick second just to make sure that he wouldn't try to make a jump for it, and after that I kind of lost sight of him and I needed a way to find him, so I started walking around looking for maybe something I can use to track him, and there it was, his footprints, and they led down to the beach. So I took action. I ran down to the beach and I saw him sitting on a rock that I knew I could easily get on. So I left him there for a second thinking that he was safe, and I went for this small deer instead. And after a quick bite I went right back to the rock and just kind of waltzed my way up there and bit him right in the head. Well, more food for me. After finishing my meal, I went back to the rock and I didn't see the raptor there, so I continued uphill where I found him sitting with the rest of his pack on a different rock. And so I examined the rock and I tried to figure out a way to get up on it. Maybe there was a way that I could sneak up there and get a few bites in. And fortunately for me, there was. I actually found a way up this rock somehow, and I scared them all off. One of them had pounced me, so I shook him off. I jumped off the rock with him and I chased him around into the plains. I lost sight of him for a quick moment, but after running around a bit, I regained my sight as he appeared right in front of me. I missed my first bite, but I started chasing him into the open where he had no advantage. I rammed him once, rammed him twice, and he got back on the rock. So I spent the next 5 minutes trying to get back up there, and eventually I did. One good ram ended the fight. Just when I thought I'd cleared South Plains, I was walking up the trail when I saw a Dible, and I decided to test my mettle and to try and hunt it down. Opening with 2 good rams, I left the Dible weak, making him have to play defense for the rest of the fight. Eventually a Serrato crossed the river. He was too small to be a threat to me, so I didn't pay him any mind, and I continued on with fighting the Dible. Using my speed skillfully, I was able to get a few good bites in before the Serrato decided that he was going to join into the fight as well. And that's where things started to get just a little bit crazy. Unfortunately, the Serrato got knocked off the cliff, so I was left to fight solo. After some time, the Dible decided to cross the river, and he basically put himself in a really good position, so I couldn't really go for him yet. And just as soon as that happened, I got jumped by 2 raptors, one of which was the gray raptor from before. I stood my ground and I defended myself. His buddy showed up and pounced me, but I was able to get him off. After that quick encounter, I sent them back to the bushes and sat down. They came back, and they wanted round 2. So I gave it to them. Two good rams sent them running back into the woods, and that was the last I was ever going to see of them. After some time, I had shifted my focus back on the Dible. Uninterrupted, he crossed the river and so I followed. I saw another Carnotaur, which I made friends with, and I jumped into the water after the Dible right after. 3 bites flat and he was dead. His body would be used to sustain us for a long time. After refilling our diets, me and my new friend had decided to sit down for a bit when this happened. Our friendship may have been short-lived, but I'll miss him. Alright, bro, that was actually kind of funny. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. That was kind of funny. Made me smirk a little bit. Well, after that unfortunate scenario, I made my way back down into Westrail. After making my way down to the beach, I came across a Dible, which I caught off guard, and I was able to hit a couple times before I lost sight of. I tracked him down using his blood trail, and it led me back to where I had killed that raptor earlier. Funny enough, I ran right past him here as he was in the bush to my right, but I didn't see him at the moment, and I thought he was going to be eating at the body down here. But he wasn't there, to my surprise. So I walked back and I retraced my steps, and I noticed something that I probably should have noticed earlier, but it's a good thing I noticed it. It was a chunk of meat that he was holding in his mouth. I saw him in the bush, I drifted back, and I rammed him again. I sent them running around the tree here, and one more ram ended the fight. Well, it wasn't much of a fight anyways, it was more of a struggle. Anyways, put him out of his misery, got a quick bite, went back down to Westrail and tried to drink from the pond, but unfortunately I also had a glitched item in my mouth which wouldn't let me drink. After realizing that, I decided to log off for the night. And with that, I would like to thank everyone who watched this video to the end. I really appreciate your support, it means a lot to me. If you've made it this far, I mean, you might as well subscribe and leave a comment, and even like the video. Thank you very much. Peace out.